Hello Internet. Today we're going to be installing some new rubber on a 2022 GSA 850. The tires I've decided to put on are the Shinko E705s. I like to place the tires in the sun so that they warm a bit, soften the rubber to make the installation process just that little bit easier. First thing you're going to need to do is raise the bike off the ground. Fortunately for me, I have a center stand. If not, you're going to need to use a motorcycle jack. Next, we're going to need to loosen the 34mm axle nut. Now with a little camera magic, we've removed the axle nut. We'll move to the other side to locate the ABS sensor for removal. Here on the right side of the bike, we'll find the ABS sensor, which we'll need to remove with a T30 Torx bit. Once we've removed the T30 Torx bit with a little wiggling, we can remove the ABS sensor. Once we have the ABS sensor removed, we can come back to the left-hand side of the bike, thread our axle nut on, take our rubber or plastic mallet, tapping the axle shaft out. Again, with a little camera magic, we've now got the axle shaft removed from the bike and the tire dropped down. You'll notice that I did not touch the adjustment screws to loosen the slack of the chain because I do want the chain to be back in the same location when I reinstall the tire. This can be achieved by tapping the axle nut out with the hammer using the back end of a screwdriver and just a little bit of wiggling from the other side and you'll be able to get it out. Now that the tire is loose, we can come over with our gloves. I prefer to use gloves, you don't need to. Remove the chain off of the sprocket and caress the wheel out of its home. Once we have the wheel removed, I like to take off the sprocket, marking it with a paint marker, the exact orientation it came off. You'll also find a spacer on this side. You can remove that. Keep in mind the spacer from the rear is larger than the front. Next, we're going to remove the valve core, but first I'm going to place the new front tire on the ground. Prop up the rear tire. Just a little trick I like to do to keep things from being damaged, like the brake rotor. Next, we're going to take our bead breakers and begin the timely process of breaking the bead. Which didn't seem to be too bad at all. A little camera magic, we'll flip the tire over and begin to break the bead on the other side. Once we have the tire bead broken, we can begin to remove the tire with our tire spoons. To remove the tire, I like to add these rim protectors, and I also like to soap up the tire just to make it a little easier to remove. To begin spooning the tire, I'm going to start on the valve side, being mindful of the tire pressure monitor. Fortunately for me, these Metzers are really easy, and I'm really hoping that these Shinkos go on the same way. Easy. And that's how we remove the tire. Next, we'll take our nice warm tire, get it into position, check the rotation. It spins this way. Yeah. And we're gonna soap up our rim and tire really well. Hopefully I didn't get any on you. Sometimes we can just, again, be mindful of the tire pressure monitor, but sometimes we can get lucky just with a little bit of pressure. But we can get the first side in. Soap up this side as well. Third hand comes in handy if you got a helper. That would be ideal. Unfortunately, I do not. One other thing I don't have is a bead keeper, which is a handy little tool to stop the tire from walking. On. One thing I like to do in order to get the bead to seat is utilize a ratchet strap around the center of the tire. And by tightening the ratchet strap, that forces the bead of the tire out to the bead seat of the rim. So I've just realized that the only air compressor I have is one that plugs into my car, so please excuse the running engine in the background, and we're gonna give this a go and see. Usually I'll take it over to the gas station, but today I don't feel like it. Next, we're going to want to balance the tire. I've set up 2 jack stands and leveled them, aid in the balancing process. Also at this time I'm going to lube up the axle. Once we have the wheel in place, we can check the balance by simply rotating it. Have the valve stem at the top. Check the movement. Actually seems to be miraculously well. I'm quite amazed at this actually. It's a miracle. One other thing I failed to mention when we were installing the tire is to make sure you have the red dot or yellow dot sometimes. There's a dot usually located on the center or on the side of the tire, which correlates with the valve stem. It's amazing that this tire is actually balanced. While I have the tire off, now is the ideal time to give it a thorough cleaning. I've also taken the time to clean in and around the caliper and everywhere that we can't reach during normal operation when the tire is on. I've also taken the time now to clean the sprocket and put fresh grease in the seal. Reinstall the sprocket. Now we'll get ready to reinstall the wheel. Once we have our tire into position and our sprocket on, we'll want to install the spacer that we removed. I like to pry the brake pads apart, making it easier to get the brake rotor up into its location. Easing everything back into place. We can begin to raise it up. I like to raise it up with my feet. Don't forget to put the chain on the other side. Once we raise it up with our feet, we can roll it backwards, find the hole, sliding the axle shaft through. The tire is installed. Make sure that you have square, the flat ends located into their seats. From here, we'll want to come over to the left-hand side of the bike, install our washer and our nut. We'll set our torque wrench to 125 Newton meters. Tight until we hear a That concludes the rear portion of our tire change.